Hi, I'm Rick Farland from Hyde Tools, and we're at the Hyde Demo Lab where I'm going to demonstrate today how we tape a joint. I'm using a 4-inch Pro Project flexible knife, and I'm going to use a standard stainless steel mud pan and some all-purpose joint compound. This is the first step that you would do in taping a joint, and consequently, if you're not happy with the results, you take it down, you start over again. It's a very easy part of the task. And it may seem daunting at first, but it's pretty simple. And like I said, you can go back and self-correct. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up our joint compound, and I've already mixed this so you get a nice consistency. You should mix the compound before you use it. And I'm going to take a couple scoops here and put it in my mud pan here. And you don't want too much in there because it's heavy. You don't want it to be too heavy, and you don't want it to dry out. So you take enough for the task that you have. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some mud in the seam just to cover the seam, and then we're going to take some standard paper tape and we're going to lay it down on top of the wet mud that I've just laid and press it in and get all the bubbles out. And then we're going to put a thin layer on top of the paper and bring it across too. We're going to let that sit for a day. And then we're going to do a little light sanding, and then we'll put the second layer on tomorrow. So here's the first step. And let's give it a pass. Here we go. All right. So we have this seam, and we're just going to take a small amount of mud, and we just want to fill the crack, just so we have something for the tape to stick to. If you do have any screw holes or nail holes or blemishes on the surface, this would be the time where you cover them. And you can be fairly generous with the mud at this point because you're going to go back and clean it up. So we're going to come back and pick up the excess that I left on the first couple passes. So it looks like we have something that the tape can adhere to at this point. So now I've already cut a piece of tape to the right length just to save us time for our demonstration here. And what we're going to do is we're going to lay it right over the seam, hold it with your knife, and then just kind of smooth over it in place. Try to make sure you don't have any air holes or air pockets. There should be enough joint compound behind the tape to hold it in place. You should be following relatively the center of the seam. And if you've got a little too much, you can just rip off the tape, and there we go. So now we've got it in place. It appears that there's no bubbles or gaps or air holes that I can see. So what we're going to do is apply a thin coat on top of that. You want to start with nice clean mud. Go back to the corner. Apply a thin layer. And you can see the flexibility of the blade that makes it helpful to spread. A thin layer is really all you need for this step because you're going to do some sanding tomorrow, and the less sanding the better. And all we want to do is just make sure that tape is in place. We're going to come in here and clean up the excess. Make sure we have no pockets or bubbles in the tape. And I'm not applying too much pressure here. I'm just pushing down enough to take the excess joint compound off. And there we go. I'd say that's about set. We've got a thin layer on top of the tape. It looks like the tape is set in well, and we can let this cure over the night. And tomorrow we'll have a little bit of sanding, and then we'll be able to apply a second coat.